The next step to all of this is to create the block settings. All settings are set inside the object we passed in as the second argument of the register block type function. You don't have to name these in any order, but we'll start simple and work our way down to the more complex settings. The first setting is the title setting. Before we set this, let's check out where this is used in the editor. Go to your admin dashboard and create a new recipe post. If we were to view the list of blocks available, you'll see that the title appears below each icon. Something important I want to highlight is that each title is only 1 or 2 words. You want to keep your titles short and concise. If you feel like your title should have a longer name, then I still recommend keeping it short. There is a way to make it easier to search for your block even if there are certain keywords that you want to include in your title. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's add the paragraph block. The block will appear below. If you select it, you'll see that it appears on the sidebar with a description. Now that we understand how the title is used in Gutenberg, let's set it. Back inside the editor, I'm going to set the title to recipe. I'm going to wrap this with the wp.i18n. Function. I'm introducing a new object here called i18n, which is short for internationalization. WordPress provides a way to translate strings with JavaScript. All translation-related functions are stored under this object. The double underscore function is similar to its PHP counterpart. The first parameter is the string to translate and the second is the text domain. Set the text domain to recipe. Before we move any further, the way we're using these functions can be simplified. We're constantly accessing the WP object. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just type the functions without typing all this out? Well, that's possible with destructuring. At the top of the file, I'm going to create a constant that destructures the wp.blocks object and grabs only the register block type function. I'm going to do the same for the double underscore function. Now we can call these functions as is. Remove the stuff before these functions like so. This makes our code look cleaner and readable. Let's keep moving forward. The next setting is the description. This will also be translatable. Set this to provides a short summary of a recipe. The next setting is category. WordPress comes with a few inbuilt categories. Let's go back to the visual editor and see what they are. To see the categories, you'll have to select the Blocks tab. We have a category for generic or common blocks. We have another category for formatting and layouts which are more design-oriented. We also have widgets for blocks that require assistance from the server to display the content. There are quite a few blocks here, so being able to categorize them will help the user navigate their way around. Let's switch back to the editor. I'm going to add a comment above. Here are the following categories: Common, Formatting, Layouts, Widgets, Embed. For our recipe widget, we'll be using the category Common. The next setting we can set is the icon. The icon setting can take in various values. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to an icon set called Dash Icons. Here is what WordPress says about this set. Dash Icons is the official icon font of the WordPress admin as of 3.8. You're free to use these icons in your own plugins and themes. If you scroll down, you'll find all the icons available. You can select any of these and WordPress will provide the full name right here. You only need to use the keyword after the phrase dash icons dash. By default, WordPress will add this beginning phrase for you. I'm going to select a random dash icon and copy the name. Then I'm going to set this as the value for the icon setting. This is one way of using the setting. However, if you were to switch to the Gutenberg editor, then you'll see that WordPress uses dash icons for their own blocks already. You're free to reuse a dash icon, but you may want to go the other route, which is your own custom icon. WordPress supports SVG icons. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. SVG is a type of image. just like PNG or JPEG images. However, unlike other image types, SVG is created using code. There are a lot of benefits to using SVG images. For one, they're scalable. You can increase or decrease the size and you will never lose quality. I will say though, the more complex your image is, the more resources that image will use. This makes it perfect for logos, icon sets, and cartoon character designs. Since it's made with code, you also have the ability to adjust the image to your needs. Creating SVG images with code is not ideal. I would recommend downloading a program like Illustrator to help you generate SVG code. I provide an alternative solution for getting icons, but just keep following along with me. I have an icon already created. This cute little character is called Wapu. Wapu is the official mascot for WordPress. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide this file for you. I've already taken the time to convert this into an SVG image. Once you have it downloaded, create a folder inside the app directory called icons and place it here. Then open the SVG file inside your editor. As you can see, SVG is all code. You can make changes here and they'll be reflected on the image. However, there's a lot of code and it can be really confusing to understand what does what. I always recommend using a program like Illustrator to make changes and then export the final result. I want you to copy the SVG code. We're going to paste this in as the value. There is one problem though. We want to paste this in as JSX code, but we're not completely sure if it's JSX compatible. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to an SVG to JSX converter. Just paste your SVG code on the left and it should be converted into JSX compatible code on the right. Copy the JSX version and then paste it in as the value for the icon setting. This should work without a hitch. Now we have a new problem. This is making our code look really stuffy and unreadable. It would be better if we could put this code into its own file. We can do just that by using modules. I'm going to undo this paste. Inside the icons folder, create a file named index.js. Any icons for our blocks will be placed here. I'm going to create a constant named block icons that will be set to an empty object. Then I'm going to create a new property called Wapu and set it to the SVG image. There's a possibility that the JSX converter may have removed two important attributes called width and height. Apply this to the SVG element like so. The recommended size for an SVG image is 20 by 20. To finish things off, I'm going to export the block icons as the default. Whenever you want to create new icons, you can just add onto the block icons variable. Now that we're exporting the icons, let's import the icon set, which is really just one icon. Back inside the recipe block, I'm going to import the icons file as block icons. The path to the file must be relative, so you'll need to input /icons/index as I'm doing here. We could have just put the file in the same directory, but I prefer to keep my icons in their own directory since icons can be used in multiple blocks. It's up to you in the end. The last step is to just set the icon setting to blockicons.wapu. Before I move on to the next setting, I want to show you some resources for grabbing icons. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to a site called Flaticon. Flaticon provides over 70,000 icons. They're all free, but you are required to mention them in your project if you use them. They also provide premium icons if that's what you're looking for. All icons are provided in SVG code. You won't have to make many changes. Alternatively, you can check out the official site for Wapu. Here you'll find various versions of Wapu and download the SVG code for him. Alright, that should set the icon. The next setting is keywords. This setting is optional, but it will allow users to find your block by using keywords. This way, you don't have to stuff your title with a lot of keywords. The value for this should be an array of keywords. The keywords I'll input will be food, ingredients, meal type. I've taken the time to translate them as well. Something I want to note is that you're limited by the number of keywords you can input. WordPress will only allow a limit of 3 keywords. However, you can bypass this by making one keyword really long. This isn't strictly enforced, so I would recommend you don't abuse this. It would just be a bad user experience. If a user types a word that isn't related to your block, then it would force them to have to scroll through other blocks in order to find what they're looking for. You want to keep it relevant. Alright, let's move forward. The next setting is supports. The supports setting works similar to the add theme support function, except it's specific to the editor itself. Gutenberg will add features to your block that you have the ability to enable or disable. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to the Block API Handbook page. If you scroll down, you'll find information on how to use the supports setting. Let's go through some of them quickly. The anchor feature will allow users to input links in your block, and Gutenberg will convert them into HTML links. The custom class name setting will allow users to attach custom CSS classes to your block for whatever reason. Lastly, there's the HTML feature, which will allow users to edit the HTML generated by your block. You may want to disable this feature if your block generates complex HTML. Let's use this. Back inside the editor, I'm going to set the HTML property to false. The HTML we'll be creating won't be that complex, but it will require to be structured in a certain way, which is a valid reason to turn off HTML. The next setting is save. The value for this will be an arrow function. The function must return JSX code. I'm going to return a paragraph tag with the text Hello World. The save setting is what gets rendered on the editor and on the page. We're finished. There are more settings than this, but these are the minimum requirements for a block. Obviously, this won't do much, but it's a start. Save your changes and open the command line. Make sure to cd into the blocks directory. Then run the command npm run dev. Lastly, refresh the Gutenberg editor. I would recommend opening your developer tools and checking for any errors. Go up to the top left corner and add a block. If you are to view the common category, then you should find the block with the WAPU icon. Perfect. This is exactly what we wanted. Before I add this block, let's test to see if the keywords worked. I'm going to type in food, and that should make our recipe block appear. We also had a keyword called meal type, but let's just type in type. As you can see, the recipe block appears even though we didn't type in the full keyword. Once again, it's fine to have multiple words in a keyword, but you don't want to stuff it, as that would provide a terrible user experience. Alright, let's add this block. It should appear inside the content. With the block selected, you should see the settings appear for the block. We see the icon, title, and description. You'll also provide a custom field for any custom CSS classes. By default, Gutenberg will enable the custom class name feature for you. If you want to turn this off, then add this to your supports object and set it to false. I'm perfectly fine with it, so I'll leave it as is. Congrats, you've successfully created your first block. We've covered the first 4 steps in the process. We prepared the environment, enqueued the files, registered the block, and created the block settings. We even rendered the block. With that being said, the block we created doesn't do much. It's just a plain and simple block. In the next few lectures, we're going to make this more dynamic and provide a UI to edit the block.